Hello, and welcome to episode number 60 of the Wonder Stuff Vodcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on every other weekend. It's the place where you'll find news, information, commentary on science, engineering, and technology from the past week and beyond, and anything else that bothers us in our little brains. As ever, my name is John Gardner, and to help us out on the journey to knowledge is one of my colleagues this week. We have Richard Smith. Say hello, Richard.
Hello,
Chaps.
Richard.
It doesn't work that way, does it? Hello, chap.
Hello, chap.
Yeah, no. Sorry for the delay before the music came on at the start, because I pressed because I've got the themes on my desktop, and I double clicked on it, and my Windows Media Player came up and went, "Do you want to upgrade?" No, I don't. I just want you to play damn stuff. Anyway, using it, because in the last few weeks we've been I should explain why Ross isn't here. Newcastle United drew, and that's
as good as it gets.
That's as good as it gets. We drew, and that's cause for a celebration in our little ranks. So Ross is he may well be watching, but I think he's eating a kebab and being very drunk. Anyway, so over the last few months we've changed the format slightly of the Wonder of Stuff. We've been going from individual topics to sort of a general area where we can start off and then sort of spike out into different things. Well, we're going to do that again this week, but this should be interesting because we've never done it with two people before. And we're going to look at generally as scientific misconceptions. I think we came up with this one at the end of the last one we did, and I wrote it down, and then we forgot about it, and I was saying in the midweek, what should we do? But this scientific misconceptions is quite a big one, actually, because it's all sorts of myths and that have been propagated around in the populist press and just by rumor and half truth and stuff like that. So I think, Richard, this is one of your sort of little pet subjects, isn't it? So
yeah,
I think we'll hand it over to you and see what you go with.
Well, one of my pet hates that you hear about evolution a lot, but it applies to science generally, is the word theory in science. So that there's a big misconception around that. So in common parlance, theory means doubt, I suppose, means that you have a thought about something, but it's filled with doubt. Whereas in science, theory is not that at all. Theory is in everyday speak is a fact. It's all the evidence together that gives you your theory. So it's not an expression of doubt. Although science never arrives at a fixed truth. It's always susceptible to change. But there are things that common sense tells you probably won't change because it's reached that point. But for instance,
so I think this is in common parlance, the rumor is that if it's called a theory, it's exactly the same as a hunch.
Yeah,
that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's a lot more than a hunch, and an idea that you're in the process of testing in science is a hypothesis. So hypothesis is a lot weaker than theory. Theory is really as strong as it gets, which is a fact in an everyday sense of the word. So that's one of my pet hates. We talked about germ theory the other week. Germs are a theory. Gravity is a theory. So you have to treat evolution in the same bracket as those two things. Basically, it is at least as well supported, if not more so, than gravity and.
So what we're saying is things like the theory of evolution is a fact. The Big Bang Theory is a fact, but unless you were there, you weren't there to witness it all.
Yeah, which is quite perverse when you think about it, because when we've talked about quantum mechanics and subatomic physics and things like that, there's all sorts of things that we can't observe, which would be preposterous to gravity. It would be preposterous to say we're not sure about this because we can't observe it directly. It's a bit immature, really, isn't it, to think that the world well, if I can't see it, then therefore it didn't happen. But yeah, I guess that's where the counter argument comes from.
Yeah, indeed, it is true.
But also the other one is that I guess for the evolution one that you see with debates with creationists is that there's a misconception as well that it's competing with, God as a theory, or that it's attempting to explain the origin of life, and it's not attempting to do anything. The theory of evolution is the result of all the types of evidence, the geological, the fossil evidence, the forms of life, biological life that you see. All these things together form the theory of evolution, and it's not attempting to explain anything. It does explain it by virtue of its existence.
I guess as well as when you were saying competing, obviously it's not, because if you're a creationist, that is not going to you're simply not going to be swayed by anything that says, just because that is the way you think.
Yeah.
So
because that's a popular thing that especially happens in the States, it seems to then spill over into people's ideas. There's people that I know who think, that it, surprisingly, everyday folk here still seem to think, well, it should have the explanatory power of this. But it's like, well, it actually does have a lot of explanatory power in its own right, but it's not trying to give humans meaning in their lives. It actually does, I think, because I'm into it in that way. But it's not attempting to do that. It's not just something that comes out of it. It's the theory is there because the evidence leads it, not the other way around. It's not that you start with something and then think, that's not how science works. You don't start with an idea and then fill it with stuff like religion or whatever does.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, as an example, we mentioned creationism here. There's another little, well, is this really a common misconception? Well, it's obviously a misconception because because the internet said it was, but there is a misconception, a myth out there that humans and dinosaurs were on the planet at the same time.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that is still seemingly around.
Was it 62 or 65 million years?
Yeah, it's about 65 million years difference, isn't there? So, but I think that's just put around by Hollywood, really. That's just inaccuracies in films where, the old films where they came to planet Earth and stuff and journey to the center of whatever, and then they find, oh look, there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex and there's a human escaping from it. It's like, that wouldn't really happen.
My 3-year-old's got a book about dinosaurs wearing underpants, and they get the underpants from humans. And I got to the end of the book and I thought, just out of interest, I'm going to ask them this. And I said, well, would they have been able to get underpants from people? Went, no, didn't live at the same time. It's like, well, if a 3-year-old can get that, then everyone should be able to get that.
Oh, that's fabulous. Great. So I've got a few other things here. I mean, the one that we've covered this before in the medicine not so long ago, but there's a popular misconception that you can kill a virus, you can deactivate it,
antibiotics.
You can destroy it, but you can't kill it. So it wasn't alive to start with, so you can't kill something that's not alive.
Oh, well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Right? Yeah, I've always found the whole alive, not alive thing quite. I suppose it gets into like philosophy of science and stuff like that. So what the school of thought is that the virus is not a living thing, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, so requirements for life is that the ability to reproduce, and
whereas it replicates, which is different.
Which is different. The outcome may look similar, but it's not the thing. You're not having.
Yeah, like this is where I always find these things quite interesting, but ultimately it is an arbitrary distinction, isn't it? I mean, that is a scientific distinction. I'm not going to argue that it's not a good one, but at the end of the day, humans could decide together that we don't want the distinction there, we want the distinction there. So
but I think the difference is that, isn't it something to do with the fact that to replicate it, the way the virus replicates is it hijacks a cell. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
And that where you don't need that. Although I suppose you do. Yeah, you're right. It is. That's a.
I mean, like DNA came from RNA. RNA was around first, so at some point, our ancestors were not alive. So however you decide you're going to say this is living, this is not living. At some point, we were not living, our ancestors, and at some point they became living. And it would be quite silly if you said, if you got to that stage and went, well, yesterday we weren't like, but today we are. It shows you that it's, you know what I mean? When you think about that thought experiment, that actually it's an arbitrary line where you say, right, okay, we're alive now.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. But,
I mean, I suppose we do it, don't we, about the whole argument about right to life. And either people who are on life support and have lost brain function, or indeed a fetus when it becomes alive. It becomes a philosophical thing when you start calling it alive at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because when is a fetus, well, hence the abortion, the constant thing about the abortion law, and when is the time, when does it become a baby, and before that, it's just a collection of cells.
The reason that you discuss these things in school is because it's a great idea to think about it. That's what you should do. You shouldn't really get too caught up in the definitions of these things, because ultimately that's not the important thing. Feynman talks about this a lot, and I really like that about labels. That his colleagues used to talk about the labels for things, and he never quite got it because he was never interested in that. He wanted to understand the thing, not the label for it. And he makes a good point about how labels sometimes discourage that, because if you know the name of a bird, then you think that's all there is to know, but the name tells you nothing about the bird. There's a lot to know about the bird, and you can never know the name.
In our school, that the time when we were allowed to talk about those things was in RE.
Yeah.
But the problem is that because I went to a Catholic school, I'm not Catholic. Well, I'm atheist now, or at least agnostic. But I wasn't even Catholic then. But it was a good school anyway. Not to leave out why I went to a Catholic school. But the thing is, it colours the whole thing. That the religious side of things. Yes, there was lots of material at the back of the RE classes, and I made sure that I read all of it. Some of it we were advised against reading, because it was not within the Catholic doctrine.
Right.
So, and stuff like that I think is especially when you're in the stage where you're at the formative brain. Now, it could quite easily. There was quite a few of us who would question everything that the RE teachers were saying, which I think is healthy. But that was frowned upon. We were the bad kids.
Right.
What they want you to do was just to shut up, let them talk the Catholic doctrine at you, and you just believed it, which is interesting.
But even in my school, we did RE lessons in a secular school, but I found it probably one of the more interesting classes that I did. I think it was like a half GCSE if you wanted to go on and take it at that level, but it was entirely optional, and most people dropped it, and I dropped it. Mm-hmm. But actually, I remember, I think I just dropped it out of a choice around which GCSEs I wanted to do more than anything else, and a half didn't really work. But because you needed then another half, and another half took me fancy. But actually, RE was one of the most interesting lessons because it was the closest thing to philosophy that you did. You know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't even know what that was at the time, probably. But those kind of discussions. I remember having that discussion: when is a human life worth saving, sort of thing? Like when should the abortion cut off be? I remember we discussed that in RE, which is a shame, really, because it's not a religious owned discussion. But that's when we had those sorts of discussions. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think things like perhaps it shouldn't be under RE. I know they do. Do they do philosophy GCSEs?
I would have thought they might now. Yeah.
That's. It should be more of a social commentary, a time when you can have social commentary and conversations about what's around you and development and all of these things. And I guess they have that now. They have a lot more of a sort of a social care aspect of it to schools now that they didn't have when I was growing up. And they probably did when they.
We should have done. We should have done, because we had we had art classes, and we had they're not at GCSE level, but first year of high school, I remember there being stuff about where you did cooking related things and stuff like that. So why couldn't we do philosophy if we're doing all that?
I don't know. But the thing is that we did things like general studies. Even back in my day, we did general studies. Now, I never quite understood the point of general studies, because I didn't think I got. It wasn't as constructive enough. It wasn't. It didn't. That's when we should have been discussing stuff like that, I think. But if you're calling a topic general studies, it's an anathema for sort of like just weak stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that doesn't fit anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is usually pointless in my.
But also, if you're planning a career, or even just a path through your education, you're going to think, well, this doesn't lead to anything. Whereas, you know what I mean? Yeah. Science leads to science, and art leads to art, and blah, blah, blah.
What I didn't, I understood that I was, when I went to a Catholic school, that I would have to do certain things like, even then, I really didn't believe in God, and I think at the end of my schooling, I even believed in it less, because I just saw all of the things that were wrong with it. the not just Catholicism, but religion in general was there in that school. There was teachers having affairs. There was with pupils. There was the alcoholic priests. It was all there, and I just thought, this is not right. But yes, so in my time, I understand why that wasn't there. I don't see how that wasn't available to you though, because when did you leave? When did you sort of leave school?
2000 and.
See that 21st century,
2001 or 2. So
21st century. So that's a really bizarre thing. But yeah. Who knows? I've got another one here. This is to do with brains and the amount of usage of our brains. So the popular misconception is that we only use 10% of our brains, when in fact that's complete bunkum. We actually use all of our brains. There's things going on. There's neurons and synapses firing across the whole of the spectrum of the brain.
It's not like part of it are laying dormant. Although I suppose a modern take on that misconception could be at what percentage is, the most intellectual people on our planet. What percentage of the brain's potential are they using at the moment? Or you could, you could rephrase the question in that way. Are we at 10% of capacity in terms of things we can? Because presumably there's an upper limit. The thing has a bandwidth, so. Although it has creative potential as well, so I suppose you'd never reach a hard limit, would you?
No, it's true, and I think you can say, you can probably safely say that somebody you don't feel is living up to their full potential, their full brain potential, but you can't say that during the course of a day they're not using their entire brain.
No. What about like the split between conscious and unconscious? Again, it's probably an arbitrary thing, but one of the misconceptions that ties in with this a little bit is you have a gene for. I've said this before. That's a misconception, that you have a gene for something.
Everything.
And there's not a gene for anything actually, apart from maybe the rhythms that keep us in a 24-hour cycle. We believe
it's combinations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which we've covered before, where and that's why it's quite difficult to find things out. It's not just like let's go through the DNA, the double helix. Oh, that's the gene for that. So we take that out, and you don't get that anymore. It's certainly not that simple. And I'm sure there's many scientists who would love it to be that simple, but it isn't. It's combinations and how they all work together.
But seemingly, what circadian rhythm is actually, the evidence is that is a gene for that. So we all have a gene for that.
Or perhaps there are a certain set of core genes that they have like. So that the circadian rhythm gene, is that that's a gene that just does that, or they think, to the best of their knowledge?
They think it's genetically based, yeah.
Yeah. So it may be that there is a core set of, like, a backbone of genes, and then everything else is combinations.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. I am not one to say. I cannot tell you that.
Well, the fact that you learn from experience is a good antidote to its genes, because obviously as soon as you learn, you've changed the gene's function straight away, haven't you? Which you start learning, and we know most animals learn. So, but yeah, it is an interesting one, because the amount of sci-fi films, which of course they can do that, they are the fi is fiction, so they can do that. But the amount of sci-fi films that sort of grab onto that idea of unleashing the rest of the brain's potential, there's loads, isn't there?
Yeah, there was wasn't a TV film or so not so long ago about how somebody is super intelligent because they've now learned to use
the rest
95% of their brain.
Yeah, there's been loads.
Yeah. But so I think that's probably just the blurring of fact and fiction.
Yeah,
and when it's put into it, because that it was quite a serious, dramatical sort of envelope, and when it's portrayed like that, some people may think, oh well, that's it.
I've probably covered. I mean, we probably have talked about a lot of these before, because they'll have come up as like not the topic, but somebody will have said, "Oh, by the way." But he has a couple of animal ones that are like shocks, not getting cancer. I'm sure we've mentioned this, but
yes,
that came from a bit like we've talked about the anti-vaccine movement, how it came from one person's paper. That was similar. A guy was trying to push his own agenda for some shock products, basically, and shocks do get cancer. Plants don't. So there's a TED talk that's just come out recently about that, which I started watching and then got interrupted. But they're looking at why that is. I mean, it's clear that the metastasis cancers that we get, plants don't, because parts of plants don't move that move in people. But they're looking at the other types of cancer because they don't get those either, as to why. So the plants might actually have a useful thing to say about, not literally, but they might have a useful thing to say about why they don't get cancer and we do.
Well, they might have something to say, and it's just because you don't understand plants.
Well, it could be. So that's that one. Bulls in the colour red. The fact that red bulls don't really see red.
Is it just the movement in general?
Well, it's just the matadors annoying them. The matador's seen as a threat. He's waving around.
And plus the fact that the majority, certainly the ones in certain versions, in Portugal, they actually stab them with big spears.
Well, yeah.
And that would
the whole thing when they're holding the cloth and the bull. I mean, animals. I mean, children do that. You can do that with a child. You can hold something like that, and then they'll run into the object that's the more visible moving object. So that's not particular to bulls. That's just a distraction technique that works on pretty much everything. And lemmings. Have you heard the one, lemmings throwing themselves off cliffs?
Yeah. Well, that's a common saying, isn't it? In fact, there was a computer game called Lemmings.
That again comes from one singular event. It comes from a Disney film where the actual photographers of the production will push the lemmings off a cliff for the show, and that went into people's mind as that actually is.
This is the time when Disney went into sort of like documentary type, pseudo documentaries.
Yeah.
So
that's where that comes from.
So they were pushing them off. Let's make it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, basically. But all the shots were filmed on a turntable in a studio anyway, so there's nothing like a nature documentary. So.
Oh, that's interesting. How about the full moon? The full moon affects behavior.
Oh yeah.
Now, I know everybody's heard this, right? It's like, oh well, it's the full moon. Oh, that's why. Oh, all the freaks are out tonight. But and I've never fully understand why people think that. What's it based on? And I can only assume that they think, they've got some pseudoscience behind it, saying, well, the moon affects the tides, which is water, and we're mostly water. Therefore,
yeah. There's that. There's the whole folklore around werewolves and things like that. Is there something as well about if it's more well lit before street lighting, potentially a criminal or a predator at night would be easier. It would be easier to see their victims. I don't know, something along those lines, maybe.
So I've heard it in the context of people who work with the elderly or the mentally disabled people. I've heard it used with when people.
What they get? Oh, right. So is that just actually confirmation bias then, where they're looking on those days they're expecting it, so they then see it because they're expecting it?
I think so.
Right.
I think so, and also because there was even a time when police stations in the UK staffed themselves more.
Well, that would be right.
Staff on.
Well, that would be right. If it is it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy in that sense. If people start to believe it and then start acting weird, because there has been like manias caused by where people believe things that are false, but then the police would do well to be prepared for it, because if people are going to start acting crazy on something false, then you still need to be prepared for it, don't you?
And like you say, if it's going out getting drunk, it's like, oh well, it's full moon, hey, that's my excuse type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think they've done research on this, and there's very limited correlation between a full moon and like any sort of erratic behavior.
Oh, what you mean? You look at the instance of crime every other day by comparison.
Yeah. And basically, there's a full moon, but it also happens to be on a weekend when everybody's out and getting pissed.
Yeah, you have to take those samples out.
Yeah. And the correlation is
so once you normalise for all other factors, there's basically no noticeable difference then.
Yeah. So basically, the only thing you need to fear if there's a full moon is if you're a werewolf.
Yeah. Well, you need to. People who know you need to be fearful more to the point.
What else have I got? Oh, there's there's the old. This is the Pink Floyd. This is why Ross should have been here. This is the old Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, there's no Dark Side of the Moon. It's just
I think Ross has actually said that before.
So basically it's just because the moon does rotate very slowly, so you're never actually. That's never always the dark side of the moon. So it's just the other side, the far side. What else have we got? Lightning never strikes the same place twice. Clearly bunkum. Clearly absolute rubbish.
Any spike at top of a building that's designed.
If you've got a lightning conductor, guaranteed it's going to hit you more than once. Guaranteed. So there you go. There's been people who have been hit more than once, which is apart from being bloody unlucky, because they were doing they're doing the same job in a similar area, and it got hit. It gets hit multiple times, so therefore the chance, your probability of you getting hit goes up. Basic stuff, but still there in the psyche of the humans. Things like, what else have we got? Oh, it takes 7 years to digest swallowed chewing gum.
Oh yeah, I used to believe that. Well, I was told that as a kid and then believed it. But I was someone who did swallow chewing gum and continued to do so despite the warning, so I obviously didn't take too much notice of it.
Yeah, so it's like chewing gum is made up of polymers called elastomers, with a bit of glycerin and a bit of oil, and it extracts what puny amounts of nutrition it can from it, and then just shoves it out the back like you would expect.
So it passes like any other non-soluble fiber then.
Yeah, and I guess it's also like what was the other thing that was put around by parents? Oh, if you swallow that, oh, it'll get tangled up inside, and that's it. Oh, oh, the harbingers of doom, which seem to be our parents. Are you a harbinger of doom to Sam and your what's your other daughter called?
Zach.
Zach, the other son, not daughter. That would be incorrect. Yeah, it's so little things like this. I always thought it was when they went to parent school and they get taught all these things.
Well, you've got to. I mean, you've got to make them aware of danger, and sometimes you've got to bend the truth in ways that so that they understand at their level. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you oversimplify to the point it's actually not true.
Don't swallow chewing gum because it'll get tangled up inside.
No, I wouldn't say something daft like that.
Just say don't swallow it. It's not meant to be swallowed.
Yeah, but Sam was wanting to plug. He was wanting to help. He was wanting to plug the vacuum cleaner in today, and you wouldn't really necessarily say that'll kill you, because maybe that's a bit harsh to say, but you would say, well, I suppose that would be the truth, saying you could get hurt by touching that. But you know what I mean? You do stuff like that where you sometimes just need to give an authoritative answer, and you don't want to get into a long discussion about it and have to come up with a 3-year-old explanation. So sometimes you have to sort of exaggerate a little bit, I suppose.
Yes.
But everyone does it. I mean, I suppose we're always told about parents tell kids now about don't talk to strangers. I think that's one of the daftest things you could say to a child, because actually, if you look at the evidence, talk about that brass eye special, the Peter Geddon thing. It's so true that paedophilia is not actually going up, but the distrust of strangers has gone up ridiculously. So now, children are programmed not to speak to strangers, and actually, probably 99 times out of 100, the best thing to do is to speak to a stranger, because normally a stranger is going to help you. So by not speaking to strangers, you're actually putting yourself in a lot more danger than you need to be in.
And plus the fact, as a child, the chances are most of your people who you meet are strangers.
Yeah.
Because other than from your immediate family.
And if you get separated from your family and you don't know where you are, the best possible course of action is to go and
talk to somebody who you don't know, because
other than just wander around lost. Thinking, I'm not going to speak to anyone but my parents. Well, you're going to be struggling then.
What else have we got? Have we got any more?
We did this, I think, but about black holes and their gravitational pull, just the same as the object.
The first thing that the one I saw was black holes, though not really holes.
All right.
Or the actual myth is that a black hole is a hole.
Right.
But of course it isn't. It's very massive. And but yeah. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say just that the mass doesn't change. So if the sun changed into a black hole, the gravitational effect on the Earth would be exactly the same as it is now. It wouldn't. The fact that it collapses in itself, its mass is the same.
Right. Yes.
So you wouldn't then be drawn in. You'd be drawn. The one that's at the center of our galaxy has a huge pull, because the star that it was before it was a black hole also had the same pull. So yeah.
What's another one? Oh yes, cracking your knuckles gives you arthritis. So while you're actually doing this, pushing and stretching joints to make them crack, on the surface it sounds like it'd be plausible that you would get osteoarthritis, but there was a
scientist who did it, where he just
he did it every day for 60 years. But
he had another field of profession, didn't he? That wasn't his thing.
No. He was doing this before breakfast or something.
Yeah, he was doing this just on the side. Yeah. And was it not to prove his mother wrong as well, or something like that?
Oh, I don't know about that. But he said he's been cracking his knuckles on his left-hand side, and he's never cracked them on his right-hand side, and there's no perceptible difference in joint health between the two hands. And he got the he got the Ig Nobel Prize in medicine in 2009 for that sort of work. And like you say, it wasn't his main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the synovial fluid, isn't it? There's a gas.
Yeah, the gas.
You do
Yeah.
a crack.
Yeah, if you could wear that out, then you would be in trouble. But the act of cracking the knuckle doesn't do anything to that, does it?
So it's just like it's a bubble that gets trapped more than not. And that's what it is. So,
I like the one about this one's a bit more obscure, but about learning styles. That this whole thing about people learning different ways, and actually there's no evidence to support.
I had that one as well. Yeah, go on.
Well, that was it really. That all humans basically learn in the same fashion, don't they? So you'll have a preference that you've perhaps developed yourself, but you can't. It's not that some women are less visual than men and all this sort of crap. That we're all the same in that sense, if you put your mind to it.
So they said that there was in 2008 4 cognitive neuroscientists reviewed all the scientific evidence against learning styles, and they basically said that they showed that the teaching in a person's preferred style had no beneficial effect on his or her learning. The contrast between enormous popularity of the learning styles approach within education and the lack of credible evidence for its utility is, in our opinion, striking and disturbing, they said. So,
well, when you think about the amount of effort and time and money spent or wasted on this misconception, it's probably an important one to put right, isn't it?
Yeah, but basically, there's a very lucrative industry pushing out all sorts of written material on this type of thing. I think there's 71 proposed learning styles out there.
Right.
But
well, there probably are different. There are different learning styles.
Well,
but it's
people do respond more. Some people respond more to oral than they do to visual, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's that level of granularity of learning styles.
Yeah. What about I like the ones around about terminal velocity. So, when movies do, like when people fall from a certain height and all this sort of thing, where it doesn't matter what height you fall from, you've got a terminal velocity of I think it's about 70 miles an hour if you're in a prone position, and obviously somewhat faster if you're vertical like that.
Yeah. But so this is the myth of dropping a penny from a tall building will kill somebody.
So if you drop a penny from 30 feet or 1,000 feet, it drops at about 25 miles an hour or whatever it is. So it doesn't make a difference how high you are. Once it reaches terminal velocity, it doesn't get any quicker. It's not like it gathers to hundreds of miles an hour by the time it falls a massive distance.
So it would be annoying.
Yeah, it would just be the same as if someone dropped it out of the first story window, basically.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be lethal, but it would be annoying.
Yeah. Because there was one. Did you ever hear this one about that if a poo falls out of an aeroplane and it gathers ice and it gathers speed as it falls down, and people are killed by that?
This was because of the waste management systems on airliners, isn't it? That they freeze into blocks and then they get expelled.
Yeah.
So that scientifically that does happen.
Yeah, accidental leakages, but I think the thing comes from a conflation with trains, doesn't it? Where they do actually do that.
I don't think even do it with modern trains. Don't even do that now. I think it used to happen. But they just have tanks now, like amazingly, and it just gets sucked out when you land or when you come to a station. Yeah. So I've probably got a few more to do, but I think that's all of the main ones.
Yeah.
But just I guess as a sort of like a sum up, I think you should just use your brain to analyze what you've been told. Is the only thing I can sum up the whole thing.
Watch a couple of series of QI and Mythbusters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're actually disappointed because Mythbusters is finished. That was the last series. They've been canned by Discovery Channel. So
shame.
Because I think that's something that should go on the syllabus of all science classes, because it's genuinely great. and people don't think they're learning, but they are.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yes, so that is our little brief interlude into telling you what the Gen is, with all sorts of scientific myths and misconceptions. There's probably there's loads more. That's just a few of them. So if something seems silly, if somebody tells you something, normally a parent, question that. Question that.
Question everything.
Question everything, all the time, and you too will be as irritating as Richard.
Well, small children do. I've just never outgrown it, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, when your parents say Santa Claus is coming, and you go down and go, Mom, I've got a little bit of a problem with this Santa Claus bloke, because I don't think it's scientifically possible to go around and visit all the children in one night.
Well, it is interesting though that what we actually do is exploit children's trusting nature, because they have evolved when you're young. The reason that religion and belief is so has this such a good foundation is that you will believe what you're told when you're young, won't you? And because you've evolved to take it on board without question, because it's survival most of the time.
But plus the fact you were told mostly by the people who are telling you these things. These are adults. These will tell you the truth.
Yeah. And they're right about these demonstrable 99 other things you've been told first. So then, yeah.
Yeah. And then what this is the horrific thing that I see is when you go into any of the major cities and all these people getting pissed and falling down are parents, and you just want to take up the children and go, look, don't always believe these people, because these people can't stand up on their own.
I just love it. I love coming up with something that's real and telling Sam it for the first time, and him laughing and going, "No, you're joking." When he thinks because he always gets a joke.
Well, that's like completely preposterous. Why would that be real?
It actually is true, and he thinks it's a joke. That's a great thing to discover.
Excellent. Yeah. So just question everything. Okay, that's the actually amazingly we're nearly at the three-quarters of an hour. So again, that's another exciting, earth-shattering episode of the Wondrous Stuff. And if you have, like every week I go through this, but if you have any comments or questions or criticisms or praises for the show, we all have the access to the inbox, which is wonderstuff@gmail.com. Send us in some stuff. That would be great. We liked reading it. We're also on wonderstuff.com, which is our blog stroke website stroke whatever. And all of the vodcasts are on there. Also, the RSS feed to the podcast version, the audio version, is also on there. So I guess until next time, which will be in 2 weeks' time. Is that a bank holiday? No, it's not a bank holiday.
No.
So it'll be the same time. It'll be a Sunday evening, and we'll put everything on the show notes. So until then, I think it's about time to say goodbye then, Richard.
Yep. Bye.
Bye now.